Hello and welcome to the MBOM podcast, where you will learn to master the business of yoga with guests from around the world who have experienced becoming successful yoga teachers, studio owners, and much more. Now, here's your host, Amanda Kingsmith.
Hello and welcome to another episode of the MBOM podcast. Today on the podcast, I am very excited to be joined by McHugh, who is joining me all the way from England. And she is a yoga teacher as well as a marketing and business branding expert. And she's here to talk about all things business side of yoga, but specifically we're chatting a lot about newsletters. So we're talking about why yoga teachers should have a newsletter and an email list, how you can connect really personally via email with your students, as well as how it can help you grow your business and increase your revenue streams. So without further ado, here's Kelly. All right. I am very excited to be joined on the podcast today by Kelly McHugh, who is joining me all the way from London, England. Welcome to the show, Kelly.
Thank you, Amanda. Thanks for having me. And hello, everybody.
Yeah, and it's really cool to be talking with you today because we actually connected over Instagram. I remember seeing your profile and being like, wow, this girl is doing a lot of really similar stuff, kind of similar but different to MBO, but definitely along the same wavelength of creating a business for yoga teachers and helping yoga teachers create their businesses. So I really love what you're up to, and I'm really excited to be chatting with you today about more about what you do.
Thank you. I mean, I'd come across your business as well. So I definitely felt there was, we're quite aligned in our way of thinking and, quite a lot of similarities with what we're doing in terms of getting that message around, the business of yoga and how to create a yoga business to get that message out there. Yeah,
definitely. I feel like it's something that, we need lots of different people to be bridging the gap because I feel like there is a really big gap in the industry.
Oh, definitely. I mean, when I did my yoga teacher training, that's really when the idea for Digital Yoga Academy came about. But when I did my training, I could see straight away within, a room of 25 people, there was a big kind of question mark around the marketing side of things.
Yeah.
So I think that there's definitely that gap. There's definitely a gap there.
Yeah, definitely. And so backing up a little bit, when did you first do your teacher training and what was that like for you?
So I did my teacher training a few years ago. And that was after around, I first got into yoga when I was about 25. So that was just over 10 years ago. And it was in my early 30s that I really got into yoga and I started practicing, almost every day. And I did my yoga teacher training because I just did it for me, really. I didn't do it because I intended to teach, which I think is quite, it's quite a similar story, I think, for a lot of people. Mm-hmm. And I was still kind of working in corporate land and decided to do my yoga teacher training so I could really kind of just get more into the practice and get more out of it. And, it kind of went from there, really. I was working full time Monday to Friday and then doing my training over the weekends for 3 months. So it was quite full on at the time because, working during the week and then it was like Friday night, all day Saturday, all day Sunday doing the training. But after 3 months, I graduated, and I think by that point, I kind of realized that this is actually what I do want to do. So it's bizarre, like within those 3 months, everything kind of changed for me. I never really imagined that I would kind of leave that corporate, well-paid job behind. But it's exactly what I did. It was about 8 months after graduating that I decided to leave my job and try and make it as a yoga teacher. So yeah.
That's amazing. Do you have a moment that you can look back on in your teacher training where that shift happened, or was it just a very gradual process where all of a sudden you're like, oh, I want to do this?
I think it was probably quite gradual. Yeah, I'm not sure there was particularly a moment. I think it was just a really gradual thing. When I finished the training, I literally within the month of finishing, I started up an event called Yoga Supper Club, and it was a monthly event. Although sometimes I did it 3 times whilst working, which seemed a bit crazy at the time, but I did. And it was a yoga event where getting people together for the evening. We'd have a yoga class and then we would eat. So I worked with different caterers and chefs, and it was a social event basically. And it was really, really well received in London. And I was doing these every single month. And I think from doing that and teaching, quite a lot of people were coming to these events. So I was teaching big groups of people. And it was at that point I was like, God, I really do love this. I'm really, really enjoying teaching. And I think probably from there is where I kind of eventually decided, right, this is what I want to do.
Yeah. Wow. That's really cool. That must have been a lot of work on top of like full-time 40-hour-a-week corporate gig.
Yeah, definitely. But then I think this is just in my nature. So.
Yeah, I think too, it's interesting to see what we find time for, even when we're super busy, because I think that kind of gives us an idea as to the things that we're really, truly passionate about, which obviously for you was teaching.
Yeah, exactly. So,
so
yeah, so I mean, it's nearly 2 years actually to the day where I left my marketing job, and started Good Yoga Life, which is my yoga business here in London. And yeah, I mean, I started up a few classes in one venue, and very quickly it kind of grew to 6 venues. And then I, started getting other teachers, involved as well to teach for me, and things grew really quickly actually. I was doing quite a lot of brand partnerships as well. In the early days, which really helped me to accelerate and helped me to get more people coming to my classes and coming to the events, and to get my name out there. So that was really, really useful in the early days. So like, for instance, last summer I worked with Benefit Makeup, and they took over a boat on the River Thames, and it was basically a pink boat. I mean, you can imagine, the brand Benefit, right? Mm-hmm. And I was doing yoga there every week. And that for me was a really big kind of, in terms of marketing my business, was really kind of a big thing for me, because they were posting on social media and it really helped kind of get my name out there. So yeah, all of that in the early days, but, all of that really helped to kind of accelerate things.
Yeah, that sounds awesome. And so you quit your corporate job and you just dove right in. You started Good Yoga Life right away and just watched it kind of grow.
Yeah, definitely. And I mean, I was doing a little bit of freelance marketing at the same time. I mean, don't get me wrong, I didn't go completely just straight from my corporate job to, to Good Yoga Life full time. I was doing a little bit of freelance. And I guess I finished that, towards the end of last year. The little freelance jobs that I was doing, and just, this is it now. I'm kind of full time on this. It was bringing in enough money for me to make a living and freeing up my time enough so that I could, at the start of this year, use that time to start developing Digital Yoga Academy.
Okay. Yeah, that's amazing. And I'm not super familiar with the market for yoga in London. Obviously, it seems like there is a market, of course, but is it pretty saturated with teachers, or are there lots of opportunities still?
There are a lot of teachers. Yeah, there's lots of teachers. There's a really good teacher community here, actually. I think if you're willing to kind of get into the teacher community and make contacts and make yourself known, then it's actually quite a supportive teacher community. There are lots of yoga teachers, but then there are lots of yoga classes and there are lots of yoga studios, and there's yoga studios popping up every week. It's still growing. There still seems to be a real need for it, I think, or a real demand for it in London. So I think it's growing, and people are becoming more imaginative as well. With the types of yoga events and so on. So yeah, it's a pretty good place to be, I think, at the moment.
Yeah, it sounds like there's competition, yet it's supportive, which is good.
Yeah, definitely.
And so, can you tell me a little bit about Digital Yoga Academy?
Yeah, sure. So Digital Yoga Academy, like I said, was, something that I kind of had a light bulb moment whilst I was on my teacher training. Obviously since then, my kind of efforts and focus has been on Good Yoga Life, but it was one of those things that was just kind of at the back of my head all the time, kind of chipping away at me, to the point where the back end of last year, I was like, right, I need to make this happen now. I really do. And especially if I'm speaking to more and more yoga teachers here in London and just listening to their struggles and the challenges that they're facing, I guess as, the space does become more competitive, it's really important that you are online. And, it's not about being an Insta yogi or anything like that. It's just basic stuff like having a website and having your schedule online and being found online. So for me, my aim is I want to kind of empower yoga teachers and give them the knowledge and help them to gain new skills in digital marketing so that they have the capacity to do this themselves. Because if you have the knowledge and you have the skills, you can do this yourself. I think sometimes there's a mental block almost, and it's kind of a little bit of a mindset thing as well, that the technology is too difficult or it's changing all the time, and also time being a big factor for people as well. Having the time to be able to do all these things. So I've kind of been living and breathing this stuff for nearly 20 years. So for me, it feels really good to be able to share this with other people and help them with their yoga businesses, because the overall aim actually is, if yoga teachers can get better at marketing themselves, then we're going to get more people into yoga. And for me, that feels like a really beautiful thing. So it's about helping people to spread their message of yoga.
Yeah, definitely. I'm totally on board with that. I feel like there is so much different stuff that holds people back. And I think that, I don't know, I can definitely relate to the feeling of being like, okay, I'm going to do it. I'm going to build a website. And then you sit down and you have no idea where to start, and you start looking it up, and it's like, well, do I choose WordPress or Squarespace or Wix? I don't know. There's so much to choose from. And then you kind of end up just shutting down a little bit.
Yeah. I know what you mean. I mean, I have those moments too, right? I think it's natural, especially when it's a new subject area. It can become a little bit overwhelming, I think. So, I totally appreciate that, and I'm trying to make it easy for people to kind of get past that. So, the information that I'm sort of sharing in my blog posts and some of the free resources that I have on my website are really good starting places to kind of start familiarizing yourself with these topics so that they don't seem so huge and scary, when you have to actually tackle them.
Yeah, definitely. That's amazing. And what do you feel like are some of the biggest, what are some of the biggest things that you see that yoga teachers struggle with?
I think, like I said before, the kind of mindset thing is kind of a key one, I think, really, because, maybe the marketing side of things doesn't feel totally natural. It might be something that they've never ever done before. So the mindset thing is definitely a key thing to get round. But I think that, by having communities around you where you're in a community with other yoga teachers going through the same thing, that can be really, really supportive. So definitely that. And just understanding how to use the different platforms as well. But not just that. There's kind of, I do hear a lot from yoga teachers that they feel like they have to be on every single platform, when in actual fact, that's not the case at all. So I think that can kind of add to the overwhelm. I've got to be on Facebook, Twitter, Pinterest, Snapchat. I've got to have a website. I've got to do this. I've got to do that. Really, really overwhelming. And you're only one person at the end of the day, and you've only got so much time. So it's actually about thinking, okay, where is my audience hanging out? Where are my ideal students hanging out, and just tackling that one thing first before moving on to the next. So, I think overwhelm is kind of a key thing that keeps kind of coming up, and just having the right skills and knowing, where to start, I guess.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, I can definitely relate to the overwhelm as like a solo business person. It's like, oh, there's all these great things that I can do. And then you're like, oh man, there's like 15 different social media platforms I could be marketing myself on. And it's easy to just look at that. And then again, just kind of shut down from it and be like, well, maybe I just won't be on social media then. That seems easier.
Exactly. I just won't do any of it.
Yeah. How do you help people overcome that? Like, and, convince them that they could just do one and that would be better than none?
So I think, at the moment, what I'm doing with Digital Yoga Academy at the minute is just I am just tackling one thing at a time. And I've, like I said, it's still very new. It's still very early days for me. I only really started this like 6 months ago. And since then I've been hosting yoga retreats and I've been away quite a bit as well. So it's still kind of early days. But the first topic that I've kind of started to share with my community, I've got a Facebook group that I manage, which has got around nearly 2,000 people, nearly 2,000 yoga teachers in there at the minute. And the topic that I've been sharing with them is email marketing. And the reason I've chosen that topic to start with is because I really do believe that email marketing is, it's one of the key, I'd say is the key tool in your digital marketing toolbox. And if there's one thing that you want to look at and tackle, I really believe that email marketing is that one thing, because, it's about really creating and nurturing those relationships with your students that can be very challenging on social media. Everybody seems to think that social media is the place to be. And it is. It's good for building your brand. But, as we know, it's hard with audience reach. It's hard to reach your audience. And it seems to be getting more and more difficult, as the days go on. So the way I'm kind of working with my community at the moment is just to tackle one thing at a time. And at the minute that is on email marketing.
Yeah, that's awesome. I think that you bring up a really good point, because social media is a great way to kind of get your brand out there and get people, like the way that you and I were able to connect. But then in order to like connect with the people who are truly interested in you, you kind of have to have that way to send them more information and nurture them and learn from them and learn what they need from you and that sort of thing. And yeah, I think that email is definitely a better place to do that than, an Instagram page, for example.
Without a doubt. I mean, don't get me wrong. It's good to be on Instagram. It's good to have a Facebook page, but that is kind of that's rented land. You don't own your page on Facebook, and you don't own your Instagram profile. And if those platforms shut down tomorrow, you'd have no way of reaching those people that follow you. Whereas with email marketing, you own your email list. It's your list, and your subscribers are giving you direct access. They're giving you permission into their inbox, which is amazing, really. It's a privilege to be able to, send emails directly into somebody's inbox. Your challenge really is, how do you get them to open the emails, and how do you, offer value on a consistent basis, and really engage with your subscribers so that they want to open your emails and they look forward to opening your emails. But having their email address is magic, I think, because once you have their email address, it opens up more opportunities to be able to really create a long-lasting relationship with your subscriber. And it's those long-lasting relationships that enable you to, fill your workshops or fill your yoga retreats. So, it's really, really important topic to look at for yoga teachers.
Yeah, definitely. As you were saying, it's like them letting you into your inbox. I was thinking about how it's almost like they've let you into their home or like their bedroom or something really personal, because we all get a lot of emails, and when we sign up for something, it usually means that we're genuinely interested. So it's kind of a big deal.
Exactly, exactly. And that's one of the other things I've been hearing from yoga teachers as well that I speak to, that they have their opt-in form on their website and they've been collecting email addresses, but then they're scared to send the email newsletter. And what I say to them is that, the fact that somebody's given you their email address, they want to hear from you. And if you don't send that newsletter, you're doing them a disservice. They're missing out because they want to deepen their relationship with you, because if they didn't, they wouldn't have given you their email address, and you're missing out as well. So, when I say that, people are like, oh yeah, you're right. Actually, that is right.
Yeah. It's so easy to feel like you're inconveniencing somebody. Like you're like, oh, I don't want to like send you too much information, but it's like they gave you their email address. They want you to contact them.
Yeah, exactly. And your job then is just to make sure that your content, the stuff that you're sending to them, is engaging and that you're constantly offering value. You're providing them with something in the email that they really look forward to receiving.
Yeah, definitely. So I want to dig into that, but I think I want to back up a step. So for somebody listening who is like, okay, great, I need to get this newsletter started, but I don't even know where to begin. What do you think the first step is?
If you want to send a newsletter, you need to have an email list. So that's the first step. And, you're either going to be in kind of one or two camps. And the first one is, you don't have anybody on your email list whatsoever. So you're starting from scratch. And I actually have one of my free resources on my website actually is a 3-day challenge, which takes you from 0 followers to 100 followers. In 3 days, if you follow the instructions in the emails that I send. So I send one email lesson a day for 3 days. And it's really, really super simple. You don't have to have a website. You're not going to use any technology. It's like super, super simple to start getting people on your email list. But then one of the other ways that is really, really simple way to, increase the number of, subscribers on your list is to use a very, very simple method, which is asking your students for their email addresses. So this is one method that people seem to discount, and I really don't know why more yoga teachers aren't doing this, but the people that are coming to your yoga classes during the week, especially your regular students, they're your ideal subscribers. Those people that really, they love your teachings and they come to your classes and they love your vibe and, they know what you're about and they relate to you. Those are the types of people that you want on your email list, because there's no point in growing an email list of subscribers that aren't interested in what you've got to say. So those people, you could quite easily go into class with a notepad and at the end of class ask your students if they would like to be on your newsletter and to leave their email address. And if you did that for a week, if you're teaching every day, if you did that for a week, I guarantee that you're going to get some people on your email list. So it's a really, really good place to start.
Yeah, I think that's a great idea. And it's kind of this unique opportunity that we have as yoga teachers compared to, say another online business, because we do have this in-person contact, which makes it, if somebody has encountered you in person and they know you're real and they know what you're all about, I feel like they're more likely to give you their email address. Whereas if you're just online, you're kind of battling this like, sign up for what I have to offer. And they're like, oh, I don't know if I trust you yet. And you've already got that trust when you have taught that person a class and you've built that rapport and built that relationship.
Exactly. It's a really, really good place to start, especially with students that students that you've been teaching for a long time. When you're just starting off with email marketing, this is a great place to start because, you can start. It's easier to write a newsletter when you know the person who's going to be receiving it. It's easier to be yourself and to be more authentic in what you write when you know that it's one of your regular students that's going to open and read it on the other end.
Yeah, definitely. That's a great point. And then for collecting email addresses as well. So you said an opt-in form on your website or, somewhere on your Facebook page, something like that. Do you also recommend offering like a free product, like a PDF or a short ebook or something like that?
Yeah, totally. So, I mean, there's lots of different ways that you can, collect email addresses. Like you say, forms on your website. You can have multiple forms. It doesn't need to just be on one of the pages. You can have forms at the end of your blog posts. You can have forms that pop up when somebody's about to leave your website. You can also have a tab that you can set up. If you're using MailChimp, you can set up a tab on your Facebook page so that you're collecting the email addresses from Facebook and then it's automatically populating that data into MailChimp. So there's lots of ways, using the technology. But the best way is to offer an incentive. So rather than just have an opt-in form that says sign up to my newsletter, to actually have an incentive that's relevant to your niche, so relevant to your ideal student. So that could be anything, and you can be really imaginative with this, but it could be something like, sign up for my meditation series where you're going to send a meditation every day for 5 days. It could be something really simple like sign up to receive my latest playlist that I'm playing in class right now. What else could you do? You could offer a discount code or a free class for if you bring a friend. Could be another incentive. So all of these things I refer to as freebies. In the marketing world, they're referred to as lead magnets. But they are, really you should aim to have something like this on your site that you can give away in return for somebody's email address. And it doesn't stop there, I always say that when you're writing your newsletters, it's about offering value, always constantly offering value to your subscribers so that they look forward to receiving your email. And one of the ways that you could do that is to say, for instance, you're sending out a weekly newsletter. You could send out with that just a PDF document that you've created that breaks down a pose that you've been learning or that you've been teaching in class that week. So say, for instance, you've been teaching, or the peak pose has been headstand. You could have like a sheet that breaks down headstands so that your students can continue to practice at home using this document. So things like that, where you're constantly offering value, is a really good way to engage your subscribers.
Yeah, I love that idea. That's such a great way to get people engaged. And I feel like it kind of incentivizes them to give them your email address, especially if you don't have that rapport already, especially if they don't know you.
Definitely. And I think like one of the most simplest things, which would be really, really easy if you're using Spotify, just share your playlist.
Mm-hmm.
That's a simple thing. You could go from that. So that's like the most simplest thing you could do, right the way up to creating a home practice course or a paid for course. It kind of goes from that playlist right the way up to, something a little bit more complicated perhaps.
Yeah, definitely. And do you have any recommendations for different types of newsletter, like software or programs or things that people should be using?
Sure. I mean, I always recommend MailChimp to anyone who's, starting off with email marketing, starting out with email marketing. I still use MailChimp for Good Yoga Life. That's my email service provider of choice. And I've been using it for many, many years. But I think it's great. I mean, they've just recently updated the interface, so they've made it even more kind of modern and slick. But if you're new to these types of systems, it's really intuitive. So it's easy to kind of work your way around it. The lists and the integration with WordPress is super simple as well. And one of the other bonuses, two bonuses, is that firstly it's free if you've got less than 2,000 people on your email list, which I'm assuming if you're starting with email marketing you will have.
Mm-hmm.
And also they've just made the automation features free as well. So you used to have to pay for automation, but now it's available to anyone on the free plan. And what that gives you is the ability to set up a automated welcome email, which is super, super important. Okay. So like if this is giving you a top 10 tips, one of them would definitely be to have a welcome email, because your welcome email, you can get up to 90% of people are going to open your welcome email. It's like super engaging. People are more likely to click on the links. There's not going to be any other email that you send that will have such high levels of engagement as your welcome email. And you don't have to do anything. Once you've set it up in MailChimp, it just sends automatically as soon as somebody subscribes to your list. So that's a really cool feature that, with some other email service providers, you would either have to pay for or, you'd have to pay for those services. So MailChimp is kind of my number one recommendation really for email marketing for yoga teachers.
Yeah, MailChimp is what I've used the entire time too. And I remember a couple of years ago, a studio owner that I work for, I was like, do you know MailChimp? And I was like, no, I've never used it, but I'm sure I can figure it out. And it is that intuitive, just like a little bit of browsing around and a couple test runs with it. And you can create something really beautiful, even if you've never done it before. And yeah, I was really grateful when they made the automation free. I was like, sweet, I can stop paying, $10 or so for this now, which is amazing. And it kind of takes away for anyone listening. If you're thinking like, oh man, I'm going to get people to sign up and then I have to manually send these guides to people or these PDFs or whatever, like MailChimp does all of that for you if you set it up. So it really saves so much time and effort and gives people a really great experience.
It does. Yeah. I mean, your welcome email is the place to share your freebie. So you'd set it all up so that people automatically receive your freebie in the welcome email. So it's really good. And then the other thing is, you haven't got to think too much around the design really, because they have great templates in there. They have a drag and drop functionality that you can use. And if you've kind of worked on your branding before, so you have some colors that you use, you can integrate all of that into the look and feel of your newsletter as well. And you can set up a template so that each time you send your newsletter, you can use your template, and it obviously, helps to save time and makes it all look consistent. And I think that's one of the key things as well with email marketing, is to make sure that you're consistent. There's no point in, sending an email one week and then the second week you send an email, but then you don't send an email for like 6 weeks and then you send an email. It's about being consistent. So it's about, picking a frequency that works for you and sticking to it so that people know when to expect you to see you in their inbox.
Yeah, definitely. I think that that's really important. And so do you suggest sending emails like the same time each week or the same time each month or something like that?
Yeah, I mean, I send, with Good Yoga Life, I send emails every week, mostly on the same day. So, it helps to keep it consistent. But I think you have to do what works for you. If you have the capacity to send a weekly newsletter, then I think that's a great thing to do. But it might be that just doesn't work for your week and your schedule and so on. It's better to kind of perhaps choose a bi-weekly frequency or even a monthly frequency if it means that what you send out has been really well thought about and has been, created in a way that is going to be engaging when it lands into somebody's inbox. Because there's no point in just sending something for the sake of it,
Yeah, definitely. I actually had, when I started doing my mailing list for both MBOM and my other podcast, The World Wanders, I was like, okay, once a week is the way to do it. We put out, with both of them, we put out episodes every week. And I just found that I didn't have enough to say each week to feel like I was providing something really exciting and meaningful to people's inboxes. So I actually pulled back to once a month with both of them because I felt like it was draining for me. And it's like, if I'm not excited, people probably aren't super excited when they read it as well.
Exactly. Yeah, exactly that.
So you don't feel like there's any like one right way to do that. It's kind of just figuring out what's going to work best for you in that regards.
I think so. I truly do. I think, most teachers, yoga teachers are doing this for themselves, right? So, they're teaching and they're doing everything else. And I think if you can do a weekly one, then great. But if that doesn't work for you and you don't feel like you're going to be sending engaging content that's going to connect with your subscribers, then I would pull it back and go for something that is going to be more realistic for you so that you can send something that's truly hitting the mark each time.
Yeah, definitely. You kind of mentioned this before, but, creating and providing this value for people every single time you're sending them an email is really important. Do you have any tips for ensuring that you do that every time you send an email?
I think it's really important to understand your subscribers. Kind of touched on this before, but, just understanding who are the ideal subscribers for you, because understanding them is going to help you to determine the best ways to connect and communicate with them. And again, I think, if this can be kind of a difficult one for people to get their heads around. And I think the best place to start is with the regular students that currently attend your classes. So like making sure that you know things about them. And, if you find that actually you don't know an awful lot about them, then it's, making sure you ask and being present before and after your classes so that you can chat with your students and get a better understanding of the types of people that they are and the types of people that are attracted to you and your teaching style, but also finding out what type of information they want to receive from you. There's no harm in asking people this stuff, and like having conversations with some of your regular students and finding out what they're interested in learning about through your emails. Do they want to receive, yoga tips? Do they want to learn about your workshops or, whatever it might be? It's really important to ask these questions. And in the early days, it is going to be a little bit of trial and error, working out what people are responding to and what they're resonating with. And again, MailChimp is really good for this because you can look at your stats. So you can see on a basic level, it'll give you an open rate percentage, and you'll also get a click-through rate percentage. And the way you can think of both of these stats is open rate really is telling you how effective your subject line is. If the open rate is really low, then the subject line didn't pull people's attention that much that they wanted to open your email. And then click-through rate will give you an idea as to how engaging your content is. Did people want to actually click through to your blog post? Was that the type of information that they wanted to read about? So in the early days, it's really making sure that you look at this information, that you ask for feedback, and you start to kind of get an idea as to what people are really liking receiving from you. And once you know this, you can then plan your future emails around that. So if people love finding out about, how to do inversions, or they want to find out that they're clicking on links around meditation and pranayama, then you know that you need to create more content around those topics.
Yeah, definitely. I love that. I think too, it's awesome if you are a yoga teacher and you're able to, have the opportunity for people to sign up in your classes, because then you already kind of have an idea who that market is. Like I know for me, my entire email list for MBOM has been built online. And so it has been a lot of trial of error of like, who is this person who's interested? And it's the same for our other podcasts. We're like, are they younger? Are they older? Are they currently traveling? Do they want to travel? Like what type of stuff do they want from us? So I feel like if you can gather your emails from people in a classroom setting, that's hugely advantageous in figuring out what they actually want.
Definitely. I totally agree with that. But there are also ways, to gather information if you're not sure, if you don't know the people that are on your list. So some of the things that you can do, is you can send a survey. So I use SurveyMonkey quite a lot. And have you heard? Do you use SurveyMonkey at all? Are you familiar with?
Yeah, I'm familiar with it. I've used it a couple times. It's an amazing tool.
Yeah, so it's really good. It's free for like a basic survey, but I mean you can get a lot from that. You don't really need to pay. And I use it I use it loads actually. I'm always using it. Everything I do, there's a survey attached. But it's a really great way. You can add a survey into your email, and to encourage people to fill out your survey. You can also offer them something. So, you could have some other type of freebie that you provide to people who have completed the survey. So always offer an incentive for these types of things. But you can ask questions through a survey. You can also, again, with MailChimp, the system gives you the facility to use polls and surveys within the email. I don't know if you've ever seen that. But with a poll, you can ask a basic question, which just has 2 answers. And then the subscriber or the reader of your email just needs to click on the option that relates to them. And then that data will be fed back into MailChimp and attached to that person in your email list. So that's another way how you can segment people in your email list.
Oh, that's so cool. I didn't even know you could do that.
So useful. So one of the ways that I like to explain this feature is if you want to run a workshop and you've got a few ideas for a workshop theme, but you're not quite sure which one to go with, you could actually send that out to your email database and ask them, what are you interested in? If I did a workshop, next month or something, what would you be interested in attending? And you can actually find out, and it helps you to plan your events and your schedule moving forward. And that data, as soon as for all the people who click on, say, backbends, that information will go into MailChimp, and you can use that in the future as well. If there's, information you're sending out further down the line around that topic, you can just send that information to those people who are definitely interested. And it makes everything more engaging because you're constantly collecting information about your subscribers.
Yeah, that's an awesome idea. I don't know why I didn't know that I could do that, but I'm definitely going to be using that now. That's so cool. Thanks for sharing that.
No worries. That's one to look at. But it kind of ties in with the segmentation of your list as well. So it's a really good way to start kind of building up more of a profile. So it's not just, an email address in a list, but you actually start to find out a little bit more about your subscribers.
Yeah. And then from there, you really just kind of suggest that you tailor your information based on who they are and what they're looking for.
Exactly. Yeah. So if you can find out things about your subscribers, it just means that your future newsletters and emails are more targeted, so you end up getting higher open rates and higher click-through rates over time because you're using the data that your subscribers are telling you about them. So that's really important.
Yeah. And so hypothetically, if you had a list and so you do a survey or a poll and you end up getting maybe really different results from, say 100 people on your list are, from your classes and they're interested in, your offerings, and then maybe 100 other people came from online and they're kind of interested in something different. At that point, do you segment the list and send them different things, or what would you do with that type of situation?
You totally can if it's relevant to the information the information that you're sharing at the time. So you wouldn't create 2 different lists. You'd keep them in the same list. But when you've got something to share around a particular topic, then you can just segment the list. So MailChimp makes that really, really easy. It just allows you to select the segment based on the information that you've learned about them. So it's almost like you tag those people. So say there are people that are interested in handstands, they could get tagged with handstands. And then when you've got a workshop, you can just send that information to those people.
Okay, cool. Yeah, that's awesome. That's good to know. And then, so do you have any other tips for creating a successful email list?
Yeah, so I've got quite a few different tips actually for email marketing in general, and sort of creating a email marketing campaign. But I think one of the key things is to set a goal for yourself. And again, this can the word goal can sometimes be a little bit of a scary word for people, but I think it's really important to have a goal in your mind. If you're about to start with email marketing, it's important to know what you're trying to achieve. And, that goal could be, anything from getting more people to sign up to your email newsletter, or it could be to increase the number of people attending your classes, or to build relationships with your new subscribers. But if you are just starting out, then you probably want your focus to be on growing your email list. So you could give yourself a goal like, I plan to collect 500 email subscribers over the next 12 months. So, that would be your goal. And then how you go about doing that becomes your strategy. So, by using offline, which would be collecting email addresses in class, and using online activity through Facebook and your website to get people onto your list. So I think it's really, really important, and probably one of the kind of number one, maybe not number one tips, but one of the key tips is to make sure you've got a goal in your mind as to what you're trying to achieve.
Right. Okay. Yeah, that's awesome.
And then offering value. I know I've said this already, but that is another really big one, is offering value, and continuing to offer value right from your opt-in all the way through in, every email that you send out, making sure that there's valuable content there. Also to experiment and to not be afraid to experiment, particularly in the early days, experimenting with your subject lines and your calls to action in your emails, where you want somebody to do something, experimenting with the types of content and the topics, different things like perhaps audio files or video or downloads, experimenting with all of those things and tracking it. So it's all well and good to experiment, but you need to have some way, a spreadsheet or anything, where you're making a note and recording your results, so that over time you can look back at what's working and what's not, and make sure that you're doing more of what's working and less of what's not.
Yeah, that's so important.
Yeah, definitely. Other tips are the welcome email, which we spoke about. That's a really, really important one. To be consistent and also just to be yourself, like the types of emails that, people really, really enjoy are the ones where the sender is being themselves and you're being authentic, you're being you, and you're telling your story, and maybe you're being a little bit vulnerable and you're kind of sharing your own journey. But it's those things, those types of emails where, your subscribers are going to connect. They're going to connect to you. They're going to connect to your story. It's really important to not be afraid to share that. And to kind of let people in. It's almost like a little bit of a behind the scenes, really. Your email subscribers are almost like your VIP, community members. And it's important to kind of share the real you, and because that's what's going to help you to develop, these deeper relationships that, you'll go on to go on to fill your retreats and fill your events. And actually, I listened to your podcast with Ryan around the funnel.
Yeah.
and the funnel. And that is just so true. It's exactly how I visualize my own business, is this funnel. You know, it's like you get people into your classes and you build those relationships in your classes, and email marketing is a great way to continue that relationship outside of the studio. Because it's very difficult to have a relationship, otherwise, with people once they step outside of the studio. And, through that, over time, it's definitely not a quick win. Email marketing is not a quick win. It's all about nurturing. It's all about developing these relationships. But over time, those people that are, stuck with you and they've continued to be your subscriber and they're part of your community, they're the people that are going to come to your events and your workshops, and they're the people that are going to come to your yoga retreats. And it's exactly what's happened to me with Good Yoga Life. I ran 3 retreats in Ibiza in May, and each retreat, I had 12 people on each retreat, so it's like 36 people in total, and 90% of those people were on my email list. I didn't actually spend any money on advertising.
That's
for
amazing.
those retreats. They came from my email list, and it is amazing. I mean, I was gobsmacked. It's incredible, absolutely incredible. But that for me it just says it all, really. If you can build those relationships over time, they're the people that are going to come. Because people don't buy on social media. People buy through relationships that have been developed, or people buy from people that they like, that they know, and that they trust. And email marketing is a way to build that like, know, and trust factor. And yeah, it's magic, I think.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, your personal story, I feel like, kind of like solidifies that. If anyone out there is not quite convinced yet, I feel like that's such a great personal example of how it's been really successful for you.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, it's the same with I'm heading to Morocco. I'm running a retreat in Morocco in September, and I put it out to my email list, and when I put it out on social media, it already sold out when I posted it on social media. So it's crazy.
Yeah, that's really cool though. That just shows that if you get these people on and then you continue to provide value for them and you nurture them and you care for them, then they're gonna move down the funnel and eventually buy the products that you're offering.
Exactly. And it's, it's rewarding, I think, as well. Like I've been working with some yoga teachers. I've just recently launched a 7-day email course. It's a free course. It's a lesson every day for 7 days. And it's really around sort of introducing you to email marketing. I show you step by step how to set up your MailChimp account, and we look at how to engage your subscribers for your newsletters and so on. But talking to some of the yoga teachers that have gone through that course and they've started creating their emails, and they're getting emails back from their subscribers and from their students, and like really nice positive feedback coming back from them, receiving information that they're really enjoying reading and so on. And I think can be a really positive thing. You've got that two-way conversation going on, and it can be really positive.
Yeah, definitely. That's awesome. And do you have any other tips, or does that kind of cover the majority of it? I know there's lots when it comes to newsletters, but
very much. Yeah, I mean, I think just making sure you're understanding the metrics, being consistent. I don't know, like planning, putting some time in your diary to plan ahead. And I think that kind of sits with the goal setting as well. Creating a goal, but then working out how you're gonna get there. But once you've kind of spoken to your students and you have a bit of an idea as to the type of information that they'd like to receive, actually sitting down and putting a little bit of a plan together, working out when you need to create your content, giving yourself a little bit of time in the diary to sit down with MailChimp or whichever service provider you're going to use and actually create your email. Spending a little bit of time testing it, sending some emails to yourself and just making sure it all looks good on mobile, and getting your emails out there. So a bit of planning as well is really important.
Yeah, definitely. I'm glad you brought that up because I think it's really easy to have good intentions with making sure that you get your emails out regularly. But I feel like if you don't, or at least for me, if I don't put it in my schedule, it's so easy for me to be like, oh, I was going to send, like a July 1st email and now it's July 19th and I have no idea where 19 days went because it just wasn't in my schedule, and people are busy. We're all busy.
Yeah. And I think the more you do it, the easier and the quicker it's going to become. Mm-hmm. So, but definitely getting, opening your diary up, or if you use on your phone or on your laptop, just actually blocking out some time to dedicate to getting your emails out there. And it's the same with everything, it's like, if you're not really sure on all of this, you don't have the knowledge, it's investing. You're investing in your yoga business at the end of the day by giving yourself that time, making the time, even if it's like half an hour here and there, it's better than nothing. Because, it's going to help you in the long run. It's going to help your yoga business, and it's going to be positive in the long run. Yeah,
definitely. I love that. Amazing. Well, thank you so much. I feel like there's been so many amazing points and tips in this conversation. So thank you for sharing all of that.
No worries. I really enjoyed sharing it all with you. So thank you. Thank you for having me on here.
Yeah. And so if people want to learn more about you, what your offerings, etc., where can they go to find more about you?
Sure. They can go to digitalyogaacademy.com. I've got blog posts on there. There are some freebies on there. And I also have the Academy page as well. I've got a few courses there to create your yoga brand, to create your yoga website using WordPress. It's like 5 hours of video content where I walk you through the process step by step. So if you don't have a yoga website at the start, you'll definitely have one at the end. And then I've got MailChimp Mastery, which is a course that's just come out, and there's about almost 3 hours of video content. You can do it all in your own time. I break everything down. I show you how to do it rather than just tell you how to do it. So you watch me doing everything on screen. And there'll be more, there's more to come.
Yeah, that's amazing. That's great. I can't wait to check out more of what your offerings are. I love what you're up to, and I'm really glad we got to connect today. So thank you so much for your time, Kelly.
Thank you so much. Thank you.
All right, there is the interview with Kelly McHugh. Make sure you go out and check out Digital Yoga Academy. There's a lot of awesome free resources and information up over there. And just to let you know, this episode of the podcast was brought to you by bookyogaretreats.com, which is my favorite source for booking and hosting yoga retreats. To learn more about bookyogaretreats.com, you can visit mbomyoga.com/bookyogaretreats. You can also find show notes with links and all the information that we talked about today on the podcast at www.mbomyoga.com. You can follow the podcast on social media on Instagram and Facebook at Mastering the Business of Yoga. And we have an awesome community just for all you yogi entrepreneurs and business badasses. You can find that at Yoga Business Badasses. And there is a link in the description for this episode as well as in the show notes. So just go ahead, find the group, ask to join, and I'll approve that for you. And I hope to see you there. As always, thanks so much for listening, and namaste.